Hey guys, welcome back to the CVCS Chapel podcast. My name is Bianca Moore, the Spiritual Life Prefect on campus this year. And today we had a speaker, Courtney Lancaster, come in and talk to us about anxiety. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
Good morning, guys. Happy Health and Wellness Week. How's it been going? Good. I've heard a lot of great positive feedback from many of you. Even today, someone showed me they bought RX bars at the grocery store with their mom after trying it on Try It Tuesday. So that's awesome. Love to hear that. But today is Thursday. So do you remember what we coined this day? What's it called? Thrive Thursday. Yeah. So I have the privilege of introducing our speaker today. Come on up. Her name is Courtney Lancaster. Can you guys cheer for her? Courtney is a trauma and nervous system informed coach, and she is certified in the compassion method. She's a singer, a songwriter, and an artist. She works with people to help them understand and resolve anxiety and depression so that they can live lives of connection, compassion, and curiosity. She lives in Orange County with her husband, her 14-year-old son, Jack, and her 10-year-old son, Asher. And she spoke to our faculty this morning. She spoke in the junior high chapel. She's been a big hit, so I'm super excited for you guys. Here's Courtney.
Oh, thank you, guys. Good morning. How are you guys? Good. Okay, so you guys all have the handout that I had printed out for you. I'm going to explain that today. Some of the junior hires were making paper airplanes with that, so if you need to do that, it's totally fine. I am here to talk to you guys about anxiety, something that I help people in my practice overcome and resolve and work through because I myself had major anxiety. About 10 years ago, I started noticing panic attacks and so much stress in my body, and it kind of sent me on a journey to figure out like what was going on and how to resolve it. So I want you to raise your hand if you have ever experienced anxiety or if you know somebody that's experienced intense anxiety. Can you raise your hand? Raise them really high. So we're all pretty familiar, hey? Yeah, we're familiar. So let's start with the first slide. What is anxiety technically from a biological standpoint? We know how it feels and we know the thoughts that are in our heads when we have it, and it's unique to each person. But what's technically happening when you are experiencing anxiety, which is fight or flight? Well, anxiety is a response that your body has when it senses danger. That's what anxiety is. So when your body experiences any kind of threat to what it thinks is going to keep you safe or not, then it will fill your body with energy, with fight or flight energy. 97% of the things that you are afraid of and worried about never actually happen. I know. 97%. Think about that. So most of the things overwhelmingly that you're up at night about or that you're in your head about or that you're worried about actually never happen. So what do we do with all of this anxiety? Most of the time, you are completely safe, but your body doesn't know that. So anxiety is like a smoke detector. When I used to live up in Northern California, and we had this house where the smoke detector was so overly sensitive. Has that ever happened to any of you in the house that you've lived in? Yes. So our smoke detector would go off when we would take a shower and the steam would come out of our shower. And it wasn't just like a smoke alarm that was like boop, boop, boop. It was a smoke alarm that was like, danger, danger, there is danger. Please be aware. Please check for fire. And it was would go on and on and on. And it got to the point where if we wanted to make toast, my son, who was 6 at the time, he'd be like, oh my gosh, because it was so jarring and so loud. That's what anxiety is. It's technically something in the back of your brainstem called neuroception. And your neuroception from the minute you were born, this is the way God designed your body, from the minute that you were born is constantly scanning everything you're going through and deciding whether or not it's safe or dangerous. Safe or dangerous. And anything that it deems dangerous, it's just going to add to the evidence in your brain of how on guard to keep you. So I'm sure that you've noticed or you've heard people talk about us being in a mental health crisis. And the reason why is because anxiety rates are higher than they have ever been. There's a couple of reasons for this. I think this is actually, personally, I think it's an emotional health growth spurt. And I think your generation is going to do amazing things with the information that we're getting around emotional health. That's personally. But we have to remember that we are actually in a time when we have an abundance of threat cues to our body perception. And remember, 97% of what happens and what you worry about isn't actually going to come true. So we have to pay attention to all of the things that our bodies might think are threats, even though logically they're not. So the first thing that some of the first things that are going to affect how safe or in danger your body feels is sleep and nutrition. I know you guys have been doing like wellness week this week, and what I want you to know about sleep, I have an 8th grader myself, and so this is like a daily battle. Do you know how much sleep you guys actually need? Have they talked about that this week? You guys need like 12 hours a night. I didn't make the rules. This is the research. Look it up. 10 to 12. Whoa. I didn't mean to insult you guys. Seriously, the thing is, you're developing at such a fast rate right now in this season of your life. It's actually really cool. You're taking in tons of information. You're finding your agency. You're finding your voice. You're turning into the adults that you're going to be. The amount of sleep that you need to reset your body and to integrate everything you're learning is probably like twice as much as some of you are getting. So 12 is a lot. 12 is like at the high end of the spectrum, but at least 8 or 9 hours. And nobody's trying to judge or shame you into having better habits, but what you need to know is that if you're not getting the right amount of sleep, the message you're sending to your body is that it's not safe to rest. And rest is essential for your well-being. Poor nutrition is the same. Like, we're not trying to just suck all the fun out of your life by telling you not to have processed foods. The reason why we're saying it's not helpful is because your body doesn't register junk food as real food. Sometimes it's fun to eat, but your body doesn't know that the Cheetos that you're eating are not like some foreign substance that's trying to hurt you, because it doesn't actually register to your brain and your body as actual healthy whole foods. It registers as a threat, which again, we're just thinking about how many threats a day is my body being sent. The other thing is too much screen time. It says too much screen, Tim. Sorry if any of you are named Tim. Too much screen time. The reason why that's a threat is because what happens is we have something called the dopamine reward system in our brain, and constantly scanning and scrolling through screen time, what it does to your brain is it keeps you looking for like the next hit of like a little tiny micro amounts of joy or reward. And what that tells your body is it also tells your body it's not safe to be bored. It's not safe to rest. But the thing about boredom, what you're going to find usually if you've been scrolling for a long time and you're like, I got to stop scrolling, is you're going to put your phone down and immediately you're going to be like, this feels bad. Like, I don't like this feeling. And so a lot of times people would pick up their phone again. I want you to know that boredom is so good for your brain. Boredom is your brain chemistry resetting, but it feels bad, which is why we go to our phone in the first place. So all I'm saying, I'm on social media. There's nothing wrong with it. Just keep it in like boundaried. Try and do it less. Just start there. Try and do it a little bit less and let yourself be comfortable with the discomfort of not doing it as often. That felt like a riddle, but you guys know what I mean? Yeah, kind of, sort of. Okay. Overwhelm. So this is obviously like definitely an issue for high school students. The overwhelm of school assignments and college applications and extracurricular activities and sports and parents, and then friend conflict and all sorts of stuff. I skipped that one, conflict with friends. So all of this adds to overwhelm because all of this overwhelm is a threat to your body because your body just thinks the world is kind of like caving in. It can all just kind of add up. We actually need to release that overwhelm a little bit every day. This is why we have spiritual practices of worship and prayer and connecting with friends. But when it starts to feel like it adds up, it's a major, major threat to your body. Conflict with friends. I want to just add that. So you guys are being teenagers, you're in a season of life right now where you're probably noticing, if you haven't already noticed, that you're disconnecting a little bit from your parents or feeling like maybe it's not as much fun to hang out with your parents and you're wanting to hang out a little bit more with your friends. That's developmentally totally normal. What's actually happening is the people that you're in friendships with become your source of safety. They're like the safe place. Which is why when you're in a fight with a friend, it's not just annoying. It can feel like life is falling apart because you feel like you're losing a sense of safety. You might not put it in those words, but that's technically what's happening. And that can add to that feeling of fight or flight, which fight or flight is your body saying, okay, there's a lot of scary things happening at once. So I can tell you're in a lot of danger right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill you with enough energy to either run away from it or to fight it off, which is why you'll notice that when you feel anxious, you will feel like you're like in a fight with a friend and you're thinking about what you should have said, or you're thinking about how stupid they are, or you're just like thinking about all of the ways that you feel so frustrated, or you'll be thinking about all of the problems that you need to solve and all the things that are going wrong. All of that is this experience of too many threats, too much to your body. And I'm going to tell you how to release some of that sense of threat. The last things, low self-esteem. At this point in your life, most everybody everywhere picks up some beliefs through a lot of no fault of your own. Can pick up beliefs that there's something wrong with you. Can pick up beliefs that you're not a good person. That any identity beliefs that have to do with the opposite of what God would say about who you are. Most of us pick those up, especially by the time we're teenagers. And if you notice that your self-talk is, full of self-judgment or even self-hatred, you can know that, first of all, you're not alone. Most of us have experienced that. But we want to work on catching those thoughts and being really compassionate to ourselves, because that can be a real sign of threat to our body, contributing to higher levels of anxiety. And the thing about anxiety is when you're in that fight or flight state, it's really hard to learn. It's really hard to learn new things. It's really hard to connect to your friends. All the things that you're here to do, it makes it really hard to do. So I want to set you guys up to help you feel a little bit safer. So how do we feel safe? You guys, the thing that I printed out for you, it is called the autonomic ladder. You'll notice that it has 3 sections. And I talked to your teachers about this. I talked to the junior hires about this. But basically, those 3 sections have to do with what state your body will be in based on how safe or in danger you feel. So if you feel not triggered, you feel great, you feel like it's a normal day, it could be like a great day, or it could just be like an average day, but you don't feel triggered, you're going to be in your safe zone. That's the first part of the ladder. When you're here, you feel calm, you feel fine, you feel ready to learn, you feel able to connect to other people, you're able to like laugh and talk to your friends, and you feel okay. The first place you go when your neuroception or your brain either has too many threats or something really big and scary, like feels really threatening, it's going to go into your fight or flight state. Your fight or flight state is where you'll feel anxious, you'll feel restless, I feel like it's really hard to focus. When you're here, I'll just say, if you have been here in your fight or flight state for a long time, what can happen is you will go down to the 3rd state, meaning your body will be so overwhelmed, it'll go into shutdown. Shutdown is kind of what depression feels like. We can feel maybe not full-on depression, but maybe just uninspired, bored, apathetic. You kind of feel like, what's the point? Like, I don't even care. If you're in that place, you need to know that everybody has been there. Or, most of us will be there at least at different moments of our life. And that just means that your body is like, let's just shut her down because this is way too overwhelming and we want to preserve her energy. So when it comes to understanding what state you're in, I want you to remember that your thoughts are clues. You can go to the next slide. So what this means is when you have crazy thoughts, have you guys ever had just crazy thoughts? Like intrusive thoughts or like spiraling thoughts? You need to know that those stories that you have, they're not to be taken literally, but we do want to use them and think about, how safe or in danger am I in? So for example, if your thoughts are clues, that means that you can pay attention to your thoughts and be like, do I need to do some things to help feel a little bit more grounded and connected? If you're in your fight or flight state, what you're going to notice is like really rapid thoughts and you're going to be trying to solve all of these problems. And it's like whack-a-mole. Once you solve one problem, then another problem will pop up, or you'll be in a fight with a friend. And it's like if my son, my little boy would run into my room and let's say he was like, Mom, there's a monster underneath my bed. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you sure? Like, what do we do? How many teeth did it have? What color is it? If I believed him, obviously monsters aren't real. If I believed him, that wouldn't be a very good mom. But so many of us, you can think of your brain as like your kid. If we're believing our thoughts, then we notice that they just get worse and worse and worse. If my son came in and was like, oh my gosh, Mom, there's a monster under my bed. What should I do? Which is kind of some of the thoughts that we have. Like, what if I don't go to college? What if I fail everything? What if everyone hates me? Those are kind of those crazy thoughts. So let's say my son walks in and he's like, there's a monster under my bed. What do I do? And I said, I can't even believe you would believe that. That's so dumb. Go back to sleep. Well, that wouldn't be a very good mom either. But we sometimes do that with our thoughts as well. Like, what's the matter with me? Like, why am I acting like this? Why am I thinking like this? Why can't I just stop being anxious? The answer to this is self-compassion, deep, deep self-compassion. So you'll see the autonomic ladder, which is what I printed out for you guys. This is the way to see when you notice thoughts that you have, taking those thoughts into consideration, being very self-compassionate, and then thinking, how can I help myself feel safer? So if you're in your fight or flight state, which I think you'll see on the printout that I gave you, what you want to do if you notice anxiety is you want to do some it says push, pull, or squeeze. This means that you want to like really tighten up your muscles. You want to just get that energy out of your body, shake it out, and then slow breaths. If you're in your shutdown state and you just feel like, I don't care about anything, then we kind of want to do some gentle things to wake ourselves back up. You can go to the next slide. Then we want to, you can think of it as like waking your body up a little bit. We want to get hugs. We want to connect with people. We want to do instead of slow breaths to calm our anxiety down, if we're in shutdown, we want to take some energizing breaths. The next slide, you can always help yourself feel a little bit safer. And this is what I want you guys to know about anxiety. It's not something that you're going to have to just manage for your whole life. If you're experiencing a lot of anxiety in your life right now, I want you to give yourself as much compassion as you would give your best friend. Give yourself so much compassion knowing your body is just reacting to what it thinks is overwhelming and dangerous, but you can remind yourself that you are safe and we can find safety through helping our body feel safer, to connecting to safe people, and that it is something that you can resolve. There's always something you can do to find a little bit more safety for your anxiety. So I'm going to pray for you guys. And again, if the anxiety is something that you are struggling with, I really want to encourage you to know that it is very healable and it's just your body doing the best that it can. So Lord, I just thank you so much. I thank you so much for this time that we have. I thank you so much for the way that you made our bodies. And I just pray for such deep wisdom right now, Lord, to know how to not believe our thoughts that come up from our anxiety and know how to not shame ourselves for having those thoughts, but to stand in the center, just like Jesus did, with so much self-compassion, so much compassion for where we're at. We just thank you, Lord, for all the education and the information that you give us to help us live really whole and beautiful lives, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much for speaking. It was a much needed message. So before we start, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a trauma-informed life coach. I was certified in the compassion method, which is basically a way to understand your anxiety and your nervous system from a compassionate place that's connected to the truth of the gospel as well. So I have helped people for the last 5 years overcome and resolve trauma. I'm also an artist and a creative, so I work with a lot of creatives and musicians and actors in that space as well. I live in Orange County in Aliso Viejo, and I have 2 kids and I'm married. Yeah, I think that's it.
Nice. First question, what is the biggest takeaway that you want us to get from this message?
The biggest takeaway that I want everybody who attempts to understand their nervous system is to understand that your state creates your story. However safe or in danger you feel actually creates the thoughts that are running through your head. So a lot of times we want to believe the thoughts that are in our head, or we feel ashamed of the thoughts that are in our head, when all they are is just a clue to how safe or in danger your body feels. And kids in this generation there's so many different threats coming at us from social media and from, the quality of the food we eat and just all of the stimulation that we have, that we don't recognize that the kids in this generation, and I help a lot of 20-somethings, are actually so overwhelmed. And so when you're really overwhelmed, your thoughts are going to be really wild and crazy. But if you know that all that means is that you need some rest, you need some connection, you need some healthy practices in your life, then it takes away a lot of the shame around having that experience of anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I agree. And I think a big, I'm going to say problem for lack of better words, that our generation has when it comes to anxiety is that we are ashamed of our thoughts. I struggled with anxiety a lot when I was younger, around middle school.
Yeah.
And I would have these crazy intrusive thoughts. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible person. I'm going to go to prison.
Totally.
And I would just make myself feel so guilty.
Yeah.
And then that would just add on to the anxiety. And so I never thought of it like that, where it's just a clue to what we need. Do I need rest? Do I need to be with people?
Yes.
Do I need to study the Bible, be with God?
Right.
I think that's a really good way to think about it.
Yes. I love that you mentioned intrusive thoughts too, because I think that's the thing that people feel the most ashamed of.
Yeah.
Your thoughts get crazy, and all that's showing you is it's actually just showing you some of your worst fears. It's showing you just some of the way that your brain is trying to make sense of what's going on. It's never true. Never. Your intrusive thoughts are never true, no matter how crazy they are.
Yeah.
They're just the product of a body that feels really, really overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. I want to dive in deeper on what made you want to pursue this.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit that you struggled with anxiety at one point, but what was that moment that really solidified, okay, I want to do this. This is where I want to go?
The moment that I realized that I wanted to help people it was maybe not one moment, but a season when I realized that I was making a lot of progress with resolving my own anxiety, because I had found the right kind of support that was able to help me understand my nervous system, help me understand myself and my thoughts. And I started to feel a lot of peace, a lot more peace and a lot of relief. And this was after, I know I mentioned this to you, but this was after a few years of panic attacks and massive anxiety. And I started to feel better and better. And I couldn't stop telling people about it. And then I couldn't stop encouraging people that were also experiencing that. And so I think that was when I realized this is a part of my calling. This is a part of my message.
Yeah.
And that's when I became certified and started working with people. And it's been 5 years now, exactly, actually this month. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Another question, kind of completely switch it.
Totally.
I wanted to ask a little bit more about the low self-esteem.
Yes.
And about how we catch those thoughts and like when we catch ourselves thinking those thoughts, how do we almost combat that, and how do we tell ourselves almost the opposite? Or like how do we go about that when we see those?
Low self-esteem is really interesting because it's where we can form beliefs, like identity beliefs about ourselves when we don't catch those thoughts, and those thoughts kind of add up and they add on each other. And so when we are, when we're young and painful things happen, and every single one of us will be affected by an imperfect childhood because we live in an imperfect world, we're going to pick up beliefs about ourselves that aren't helpful. And so if you notice that your self-talk and your thoughts are not speaking to you in the way that God would speak to a well-loved child, that is something to pay attention to, and we can notice them. So like imagining, your thoughts are like clouds in the sky, and you're sort of the sky. So this is why a lot of healthy psychology talks about like awareness, or the Bible talks about like meditate on God and the love of God, is because you can notice the thoughts that are going through your head, just like you notice the clouds that are in the sky, and just watching them pass by. And you can say to yourself, I notice that I'm having some self-hatred thoughts right now, or I notice that I'm having some really self-judgmental thoughts right now. And speak to yourself, again, the way that you would a best friend, or imagine what is the most loving thing that God would say to me in this situation. And if you can make it a practice to, again, not shame yourself for having those thoughts, but to really compassionately redirect the thoughts that you have, to practice looking at yourself in the mirror with love, and to really practice your identity as a well-loved child, then you really can rewire your brain. You're creating new neural networks. You can really rewire your brain to align your identity with what God says about you, which is the ultimate foundation for well-being.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think it's incredible, the emphasis on what God says about us, because we're flawed, we're humans, obviously. We're going to have really strange thoughts about ourselves. That is definitely not what God created us to believe about ourselves, or created us to be.
Totally.
And just really locking in and fixing our eyes on who He is and how He loves us.
And who He says we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Totally.
Because honestly, in this world, everybody finds an identity in something.
Yes.
But none of us really find our true identity until we find God.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really huge. And I believe that is why a lot, especially the younger generation, that's why a lot of us struggle with anxiety, because we don't have a full understanding about God, or we haven't been truly into learning about God. But once we grasp that, once we understand who He is, that is when we start to figure out, okay, who am I? Who does God say I am? And how does what does He say about the thoughts I'm having about myself?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. And even a lot of the psychology and the trauma that I researched in all of my own training was non-Christian, and it still pointed to there is no life outside of being connected to a source of something greater. We know this as being connected to God through Christ.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was so fascinating to see that science has proven that you're not going to have a full life outside of connection to God.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, I think, and I want to talk a little bit more about that, because how do people not believe in God if even science points all the signs towards Him? And that study that you were just talking about, if scientists are telling you that you're going to live a good, fulfilled life if you're connected to, quote unquote, a God.
Right.
I'm going to say our God, because He's the one God.
Yes.
Why, if you believe in science, wouldn't you believe in that?
Yeah.
And many atheists even say that people who believe in God, whether they believe in God or not, live a fuller life and a happier life because of His teachings and because of His love for us.
And the connection.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
So kind of off of that, how do we break habits that is kind of the opposite of what self-compassion is about?
Any habits that are rooted in anxiety or depression or coping, numbing addictions or scrolling or any habits like that just aren't helping you live your most loved life, those are ones that you want to, I would always say, begin in a ton of self-compassion. The only reason why any of us develop any of those habits is out of pain. So really understanding, like, I'm just a human, I'm doing the best that I can, and this is where I'm at. And if some habit is highlighted to you to change, then what you can do is take the time to kind of list some of them out. And this is not a self-judgment practice. This is like, what are some of the things that I do that maybe aren't so helpful for me? And practicing changing one thing at a time is probably the most helpful for your brain, knowing that, like, you got time.
Yeah.
You've got all the time in the world, right? You're either here or in heaven, so you have all the time in the world.
Yes.
And knowing that, neuroscience says it takes 45 days to change a network in your brain around a habit.
Yeah.
So when let's say you notice you're really self-critical, if you could maybe set a note in your phone for 45 days of, like, practicing appreciation for my life, appreciation for my little sister, appreciation for my teachers, appreciation for the world around me. Just tuning your brain to appreciate things as opposed to criticize them will actually create a really strong neural network in your brain that will train you to begin looking for things, train you for gratitude in your life. That's just one example. But really, like, looking at the habit, looking at why it's not helpful, and then looking at what do you want to replace it with instead, and really setting to, like, okay, I'm going to commit to doing this. Small things, at a time. For a season of time is a very effective way to change things, as long as it's rooted in self-compassion, because anything that's rooted in self-hatred is not sustainable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I really like how you talked about just, like, being real, talking about those harmful coping mechanisms, because there are good ways to cope and bad ways to cope.
Yeah.
And it like, hearing you talk about that, it gives me hope, and it's just filled with hope, because a lot of people, and, like, my family has had history with addiction and all of that.
Totally. A lot of people's family has.
Yeah. And so at first, it's like those first 45 days is like, I keep on, like, having to, like, remind myself. It just doesn't feel like it's sticking.
Yeah.
But if you just keep on going with it, you're going to form those habits. Like, my dad, 10 years sober, January 11th this year.
Oh,
and
congratulations to him.
yeah,
That's
and
beautiful.
he is so inspirational to me.
Wow.
Because of the change, and he is one of the strongest Christians that I know, and I think it's just a testament to how change is possible no matter how far you've gone or how deep you
Oh my
are,
God.
like,
Undoubtedly. That's the gospel.
Yeah.
And what I'll just add really quick, know that when you do change a habit, it does not feel good at first. It does not feel good. I mean, your dad could probably tell you when you stop drinking, you literally will feel all the pain you've been trying to run from for so long. Combined with your body is like, what the heck? We're used to numbing this. We're used to this, Band-Aid.
Yeah.
So, but, like, even taking it to, like, scrolling.
Yeah.
If you, like, decide to stop scrolling as often, or, like, give yourself a limit, it will actually, especially for the first 2 weeks, feel bad.
Yeah.
It'll just suck. And if you know that, then you won't be caught off guard, and you won't be as tempted to go back to it, because you're like, oh, this is actually the part of the healing. This is actually part of me changing and growing and moving into healthier habits.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And it's really hard to remember that, but it's like you said, if you think about it, rather than trying to run away from the pain that's caused from you running away from the pain.
Yep.
Just, like, almost embrace it. Be like, it's beautiful. This is helping me be better. This is helping my, like, it's
capacity,
strengthening me.
yes.
Like, my capacity to, like, and almost to understand, like, this is what's happening. And I can help other people who's going through this, because I've gone through it myself. And I don't know. I think it's just really beautiful. And the end product is just, you feel so proud.
Yeah.
I went through that. I stuck through that, and now look at me.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, to close us, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, ask you any questions, how would they be able to do that?
You can email me if you have any questions at courtneyandhart@gmail.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.
This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK through 12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.